Sivaya Nama Thirukazhumalam. Welcome back to our discussion on Thirukazhumalam Padigam. This is the finale session for this particular Padigam. Historical sequence is the fifth sequence. Let's look at the 10th verse from this. Sezhu kondraiyum koovila malarum viraviya sadai mudi adigalai ninainthittu azhu inai adiyavarkku allaal arivu arithu avan thiruvadi inai irandum vala nagar kondu Ooran sadaiyanthan காதலன் பாடிய பத்தும் தொழுமலர் எடுத்தக்கை அடியவர் தம்மை துன்பமும் இடும்பையும் சூழகிலாவே. This is a very lovely verse. The reason why we say it's a lovely verse is because usually Thiruñana Sambandar has this kind of a pattern. When he sings a padigam, the last verse, right, the finale verse, usually will have the benefit of reading this padigam. We call it as Thirukazhumalam. Basically, when you talk about reading this padigam, we need to get some benefit. I mean, he uses a very simple logic like what we talk about right now. Right now we say, right, when you want to get work from your subordinates, you don't tell them what you want them to do. Rather, you tell them what is the benefit of for them when they are doing a task. So they usually say it as what is in for me, and that is what the collaborative leadership is all about. That's exactly what Nambi Arurar is also trying to do here, because Kari Pallayar, as in Thiruñana Sambandar, is one of the best leaders that you can ever think of. Right from the dictatorship kind of a leadership all the way to the servant leadership or transformational leadership like we are talking about right now, we will be able to see samples of those in Thiruñana Sambandar's Thevaram. If possible, we'll consolidate all of those once and we will talk about it. Coming back to this particular padigam has a benefit, and that has been resonated in this verse, in this 10th verse, talking about what is the benefit of reading this padigam. Let's look at what is the benefit. Nambi Arurar says, there are 10 verses in this, written by me. My name is Ooran. He is introducing himself, saying that this particular padigam is written by Ooran. Now, one thing we have to remember is, predominantly we keep calling him as Sundarar. But if you look at none of his verses, all the 100 verses, right, there are 100 padigams rather, 1026 verses are there. If you look at all these verses, not even in one single place he has introduced himself as Sundarar to us. Wherever he is introducing, he is only talking about Aruran, Nambi Aruran, or Vantondan, or Singadi Appan. You know, there's a lot of other ways. Even his pet names he is introducing. Even in that verse, he is not talking about Sundaran as his name. Second, the person who came and wrote Nambi Arurar's history in the form of Periya Puranam, and that saint's name is Sekkirar, who wrote the 12th Thirumurai, which is considered to be the most holy text for any Saivite, and we always aspire to follow that particular book while we are living our life. When we are talking about Sekkirar Peruman, even Sekkirar has not addressed him as Sundarar in not even one place. Of course, he is addressing before when you are talking about the Kailash saga, that is the place he is introducing as Sundarar. But once Nambi Arurar is born, as in Sundarar is born as Nambi Arurar, right from that minute he is not addressed as Sundarar. Now, recent days there was a saint again who was living in our century, 19th and 20th century. His name is C.K.S. Ayya. He was the one who wrote the meaning of Periya Puranam. Not even in one single place he has represented or he is addressing Sundarar. He is also calling only as Nambi Arurar. Don't know from where we got stuck with this particular name called as Sundarar. Of course, Sundarar was the previous birth when he was in Kailash. So there is no point in calling with that name. Imagine if someone is asking, hey, what's your name? If I say, oh, my name is Lavanya, And then they say, oh no, your previous birth you were called as Jimmy, so I'm just going to call you as Jimmy. Like, please la, my name is not that, my name is Lavanya. If you're calling me with something that I had in my previous birth, I'm not just going to be bothered to turn back, right, when you're calling me. So I prefer to be called with this particular name, so you should be respecting me. That is the etiquette that we are talking about right now, because even when we say, what's your surname, how do you prefer to be called, we ask that. That's an etiquette while you are introducing. And I don't know why we are missing that. For Nambi Arurar alone, we are addressing him with, and so many places they are just representing as Sundarar, which is baseless. There is no basis for addressing him as Sundarar. Anyways, that's between the individuals and Lord Shiva to sort it out. Anyways, we are not going to represent him as Sundarar, as Nambi Arurar prefers, and he introduces himself in this particular Padigam as Ooran. We are only going to call it as Nambi Aruran or Ooran or Mantondan, whichever Nambi Arurar is using. And he says, Nambi Arurar, as in Aruran, has written 10. He's representing his own. He's giving like a verdict. He says, I've written 10 verses. And you know how the 10 verses must be read? When you're reading this, you shouldn't be just lying down on a bed or just walking around and listening to it or singing about it. Rather, you need to hold your hands, uphold your hands in this particular position, which is called as worshipping position. If possible, you need to have flowers in your hand, but I'm not sure how many of us can have that. We do have that luxury. If you have, please do so. If not, at least consider your heart as the flower and go on worshipping him. Now your hands must be together, as in your palms must be together in a worshipping mode, and you need to read the 10 verses. This is what is the expectation from someone called as the aspirants of Saivism. We call it as adiyavarkku. Adiyavarkku means the aspirants, someone who is in the journey of this. Now when you talk about going on with this particular approach, right, he also says someone who is reading with this kind of an approach will never get into a sorrowful state or will never get into a poverty stage as well. We will never get into poverty, we will never get into a sorrowful state. Rather, everything is going to be addressed beautifully by Lord Shiva, because we have already submitted ourselves to him. The first two lines, he says, what is the quality of an adiyar? What is the quality of an aspirant in Saivism? Someone who is, the moment they think about Lord Shiva's feet, they should automatically start getting tears. The tears is not because of sorrow or because of thinking some problems or whatever, rather because of happiness. The tears are running down because of happiness, because of gratitude, because of the happiness we have in our mind, and because of the grace that he has given to us. Once we start realizing that we are already in the path of adiyar, which is basically called as the aspirant. So while reading this Padigam, once we read it, what is the benefit, what is in for me for reading this Padigam is, we will not get into a sorrowful state, or we will never get into poverty as well. Now when you talk about this particular Padigam, since it's the last verse, we will look at a holistic approach or an overview also. What are the different Maheshwara approaches that we have seen so far? There is Ardhanarishwarar. Regarding the Ardhanarishwarar, we saw it in verse 1. We also spoke about Nataraja, which is number 3. We also spoke about the black throat, which is in the 4th and the 9th verse, and also Uma Maheshwara statue or the deity in the 8th verse, and also the one with a crescent in the forehead, that was in the 9th verse. We also saw a reference to Lord Muruga in this. So if you look at it in an overall approach, this Padigam has been a wonderful journey for us, even though it was not continuous, but we still, I think Lord Shiva had the grace on us to finish this. I'll come back again with the next Padigam itself very soon. Until then, Sivaya Nama, Thirumurai.